Hey everybody, welcome to Analog Stick Radio. Here we are firm supporters of the Oxford comma. This is episode 5. I'm your host Mitch, and as always I'm joined by the always ostentatious Dakota.
Hello.
And the seemingly effortlessly voluptuous Christopher.
Yes.
How are you guys doing this week? Dakota, I know we're going to talk about it during the meta bet, but how was only Heroes of the Storm this week? I need to know, are you level 30? Like, that was the goal. Did you get to level 30?
I didn't get to level 30.
Oh my god, that was the point of this. I'm just, you know what? If I win again, I'm gonna make you do it again. Like,
okay.
We're gonna keep doing this until you hit 30.
I need to dig myself out of the hole. Yeah, I got from level 18 to level 23, I think, over the last week, which is a lot for me. I usually don't devote a lot of time to a single game, so it helped for sure. And I bought Thrall with my 10k gold just I think today. So I'm getting there. What do you need? 10 heroes in order to play ranked?
Yeah.
You also need 10 heroes to play ranked, yes.
On my way.
Your drinking age.
I did. So little good news, bad news. Good news is I made it to level 23. I don't know how good that is. Bad news is I did cheat. I did play something else. Good news is it was Star Wars Battlefront, the beta. I had to play it.
I did let you know that was okay.
Yeah, I asked Mitch off the air, and he said that's cool since it was a
I gave you permission.
Windowed beta, and I wouldn't have been able to play it all. Bad news is it sucks donkey balls. We can talk about it if you'd like, but I have early impressions on bit cultures, and you guys can read and tell me how I'm wrong.
Yeah, I like watching the videos. Like, they're very funny, but it doesn't look that good.
It is beautiful. It's very, very beautiful, and it's very immersive. All the pew pew of the blasters sounds right. The X-Wing TIE Fighter sounds are awesome. AT-AT's crashing around you. Very cool. The gameplay, though, is it's kind of weak. It's not a great shooter. It's exactly like the old Battlefront, so if you like those, you like this. But as somebody not familiar with the genre, going in and expecting a quality shooter that's also Star Wars is not what it is.
I'm more upset about that pre-release bonus. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not. Talk to me.
There's it's the season pass for that game is $50.
Oh yes, $50.
$50.
Did you say 15?
50.
You said 15?
$50.
What?
50 for a season pass of what you don't even know what
they
you're
don't
gonna
even
get
know
with
what
it.
they're. Yeah, I can't stand it. We could.
Yeah, could be a bunch of Tauntaun skins.
Jeez. That's unacceptable. Like, this is another like example of, we talked about in episode 1, just like the unacceptable idea of this isn't really DLC, but still, like, this is unacceptable.
Yep.
This is just not a good thing.
I saw Jim Sterling tweet, because the Star Wars game is going to have difficulty recouping costs.
Yeah, for real. Who knows who's going to buy it, man?
Yeah.
There's not that many Star Wars fans out there.
Right.
Well, I actually picked up a PS4 last week.
Woo!
Because
One of us.
Well, after our conversation about The Last of Us and how I really wanted to play that game, and I didn't have a console, and then after seeing this, I saw some videos on Reddit of the Taken King, and everything looked really cool, so I was like... And then I saw this bundle, and I was like, okay. And I caved, and I bought it after a mountain of problems with Target. But I did end up buying it. I am level 30. I'm level 30. I hit level 30 today.
Nice.
In Destiny. It's actually really fun. It's I thought it was just going to be Halo, the other game, and it's really good. It's got its own unique flavor to it. The class I picked is actually a lot deeper than I thought it was. I picked the Warlock, and he has like these 3 different class trees. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, you can subclass in that game, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. It's really difficult. Like, things hit you hard, and they're like smart. They like come like you if you just try to hide behind a box, they like come looking for you, and like bosses will like teleport in front of you and stuff if you hide behind a box for too long, and like it's really difficult.
You and I played a little bit, but we just played some of the intro level stuff. I'll have to catch up with you, maybe pop that Taken King item level boost and play some more. But I played it too. I enjoyed it as well. What about you, Chris? What'd you play?
I played some Heroes with you, Dakota.
Yes, we
a little
did play
bit.
some Heroes.
Played some Heroes.
How'd that go?
I mean, we did well that one day.
Yeah.
The last match that we did, though, was
atrocious.
is an embarrassment
Yes.
to everybody
To
involved.
everything and everyone.
I played. Oh, I beat BioShock Infinite.
Nice.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I feel
Oh
like
God, I already don't like it.
I
I'm
spent
already mad.
I spent a lot of time thinking about it. The game was gorgeous, but it felt like I don't know. I feel like the Sky Rail is a great metaphor for how the game is. Like it's just there. It's a really great idea and it's awesome, but it's kind of there with no reason for being there. Like
It's
the game
there so you can ride around on a
yeah,
sky rail.
but
like, come on.
There's no like part where it's like, oh man, that's such a great skyhook scene. It's just kind of like, here's an arena fight where a bunch of dudes are pouring out of the walls, and now there's a skyhook that you could go and maybe use.
I know what
to
you
fight
mean,
with
Chris. Like I remember the promotional materials and like the early beta previews, and the devs were like, "Check this cool thing out. We got the skyhook." But at the end of the day, it's just another way to move. It's not terribly exciting. What did you think about the story, though? How about the relationship between Booker and Elizabeth and the narrative, without giving anything away, of course?
Without giving anything away, I enjoyed the narrative. It seemed a little bit jarring sometimes because I felt like they brought up conversations that hadn't happened in a cutscene yet, and I was like, oh wow, this is really interesting. And then a cutscene happens and they talk about the same thing they talked about 5 minutes before, like it was new information, and I'm like, this was weird. And
Interesting.
I mean,
interesting.
yeah, that only happened in one particular case, so maybe it might have. I don't know if that was
It's been like a
random-
miscue or something.
Yeah, yeah. I
maybe.
don't know if that happened, but the other thing I really liked, they had so much, like I'm trying to think of the word. So much ambition is the word. So much ambition. They brought in a lot of things, like they brought in, racial tension. They brought in class tension. They brought in like religious fanaticism, and they threw all these things out there, but they didn't spend enough time on any one particular idea to flesh it out. Like the original BioShock, when you go into BioShock, it's a lived-in world. Like you see these splicers walking around, and they're all like shaking and weird, and you could kind of see them, and like you kind of see them as shells of people, and you get a feel for them, and like the big daddies are walking around before you fight them. Here, there's like their version of the big daddy, this like handyman type character. You kind of learn a little bit about it or whatever, but then when you see it in a fight, it's like it just comes at you out of nowhere with no information. You're supposed to feel for this character, but you learn about it once for like 1 second, and then you just fight it and kill it instantly.
I definitely think that they made the big daddies in the original BioShock a lot more special and a lot more like alluring as this kind of sympathetic villain than they did with anything in the third game.
Everything in this game just seemed like they had so many great ideas, and they're like, let's throw all these great ideas into the game, and then they didn't spend time actually crafting those games, or those ideas.
Mitch, do you remember the twins?
Yes.
How delightful, Chris, was it every time you saw the twins? I could not help it. Like every time they showed up, I had a big shit-eating grin on my face and kind of scratched my head and went, "What the hell does this mean?"
Yeah, I love that, and I feel like the way it ended was really good. Like I really liked the overall storyline, the overarching storyline.
Yeah.
I thought that was well done. But all the in-between stuff, I feel like they could have cut out some of those things to really flesh out their ideas.
That was my biggest beef with the game. I remember, playing it, I'm a huge BioShock fan, so I was already just like in awe with it, and I was just loved playing it again. But honestly, I remember thinking the whole time, like my only criticism with the game was that it felt rushed. It just felt like they were just trying to get you to see as much as you possibly could, and so they were just skimming over a lot of details, because there were a couple times that I was literally like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is happening right now? I don't understand, like, what's going on. And then I would keep playing and be like, oh, okay, I kind of get what they were doing there. But they just, like you said, they just gloss over it. And I don't know. That was my only beef with it. But other than that, the game looks gorgeous. Like, it looks absolutely incredible.
Other than BioShock, I played actually a little bit Diablo 3.
Oh, yes, we did play Diablo 3.
Yeah, we did play Diablo. Uh-huh.
Yes, we did.
We were playing these seasonal characters. You could play as a normal character, but if you play in the season, you don't usually you have like your other loot that you make on your characters. They're all saved in this one particular bin and all this gold and stuff. But if you play a seasonal character, you get a lot of loot faster and a lot of gold faster. You get experience faster, but you don't get that loot that's on your other characters. So it's kind of like at the end of the season, your character will become a normal character, and you can move all that stuff over. So it's kind of like starting from scratch
But they give you that bonus though. You get like
Yeah.
extra drops and extra experience.
So that's
it's a
where
little bit quicker. It's fun. I like
fun.
it.
I only played Diablo 3 when it first came out, and then I was like, I'm over it, like everybody else. But I bought the expansion a while ago for really cheap, and so I finally started getting back into it. And it's really fun with this seasonal character, and like I don't know, I feel like they really fixed a lot of the problems with it. So I'm having a little fun with that.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're having a lot more fun than I am. I'm still on the league grind, and I am just bashing my head against a wall. I hate this game so much, but I still play it.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because one of my favorite characters is Sivir, and like the rank bonus like skin that you can only get for like getting to gold 5 or higher in this season is a Sivir skin. So I really want it, and I'm trying really hard to get it, but I can't carry the whole team anymore. Like you used to be able to with the AD carry, but the changes that they've made now, you can't. You like need to be a jungler, and even then, if you're a jungler, like you still have to like make sure you're. I know this sounds crazy, but you have to make sure you're working as a team. Basically, if you're not, then you're not going to win.
Oh,
and that
man.
sucks because my teams usually suck. I know my teams are usually terrible. I was talking to Mike about this actually, Chris. That's the thing that I don't like is it always feels like my team is full of 3-year-old like children who don't understand how a keyboard works, and my opponents are like Team Solo Mid. And I don't understand why it's always like that.
It always feels like that.
I'm like, why does your Vayne know how that character works, and my Vayne is running around like an idiot? This is not fair. This is unfair. But I could talk about how much I hate League all day long, but let's actually move on to the main topic for today. All right, so today our main topic is difficulty, and we're talking specifically about game difficulty. Now, there's a lot of things we can say about this, so the way I want to start off, let's talk about the most difficult game you guys have ever played. And when I say you guys, I don't just mean you and Dakota, so you guys at home, if you're listening and you feel like letting us know, go ahead and respond on YouTube or email us, whatever. I want to hear about the most difficult game you've ever played and why. But Chris, I'm looking at you specifically because I know you've got a lot of things you want to say about this. What's the most difficult game you've played, and tell me why?
Oh man, the most difficult game.
The most difficult game.
God, I mean, I could go like I've played a lot of the stereotypical, I guess, difficult games. Like I've like Battletoads. I actually grew up with the NES. At that time, I got Battletoads. My dad got Battletoads for me when it came out, so I played that on the NES, and I was never able to beat it because I was like 5 years old.
Has anyone ever beat that game?
I don't
I'm
think.
Pretty sure
I
it's unbeaten,
think it's a thing
right?
of lore. The most difficult game, I guess, Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh, like Chris, you and I, we're right there.
I mean,
that game is just eats.
Well, I got you onto that one.
Yeah, you did. It eats at your soul, man.
I played Dark Souls. I played a bunch. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. There's nothing's more rage-inducing, but so lovely.
You don't know a difficult game until you play that game.
Also, I want to be the guy, but I feel like that's different. And we could go into that later.
Oh, that's not different. I think that's a great answer. Why do you think that's different?
I don't know. I felt like because even though it's an indie, it's not really an indie game. It's like a fan-made game. I don't know. To me, I feel like it's more of an art project than a game. Like, it is a game. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Like, you could play it, but because you have to do things in such a specific pattern, like...
Does it feel like cheating to have that as your answer because the game is specifically made to be the answer to this question?
I feel like that.
That's what I was going to say. That's the reason that it's not an actual answer.
Okay.
Because it's like one of those... It's like, what was that Mario game that, like... It looks just like Mario, but like it's just infuriating and rage-inducing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That game is designed to just piss you off.
Yeah, let's talk about more of those later. Chris, Mitch, is that also your answer? Super Ghouls and Ghosts. We'll stick with that.
That game is just infuriating. I remember I was working with our friend Mike, and I was playing it on the Game Boy Advance at the time, and I'm like not paying attention to people at work so I can get this done. Like, if you've never played Super Ghouls and Ghosts, by the way, let me just break it down for you real quick. You have to beat the whole game in one sitting. Like, there's no save points. You just go. And if you die, you start at the very beginning again. And you're this knight, and if you get hit once, you're in your boxers. You lose your armor. And if you get hit again, you're dead. That's it. Now, you can find armor, like, around the levels, so that you can like put it back on if you get
Very
hit.
sparing.
Very sparingly, and you have like a bunch of different weapons that you can use, but you can only use one at a time, and it's basically just a side-scrolling like jump, like platformer, yeah. And I remember I was so excited because I had finally beaten the game. I'm at the boss. I had done this like a gajillion times, but I was determined to beat this game. So I finally beat the game, and this little freaking cutscene pops up and says, "Oh, you did beat us, but you have to beat us again, and you have to bring this stupid item with you now." So to beat Super Ghouls and Ghosts, you have to beat it twice in one sitting without dying.
Yeah. So for me,
like, what the hell is that shit?
I don't know if I can follow that up because for me, I don't specifically. That's not true. I was going to say I don't specifically know what made this game hard, but I do remember a thing. I don't remember all the things. The hardest game I've ever played was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. Not the arcade game. This is a side-scrolling platformer. If you don't know what it is, if you look up top 10 hardest games of all time list, it will be on there.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And specifically because of I think what was the second or third level in, I believe the second, which was underwater, and you had to navigate through a coral reef without touching any of like this electric moss, and it was goddamn in-freaking possible. Especially as I think, Chris, you pointed out when you're a 5-year-old boy. I do remember getting through the level once or twice, and then all of a sudden the game changes to like an overworld style game, and I couldn't understand it as a young boy, and I end up going into a level, climbing up on top of a building, and then trying to jump across a building-to-building gap and dying. And in that game, you have 4 lives because there's 4 turtles. So once they're all dead, they're all dead. So
I like that. That's actually really interesting. I've never seen a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game do that. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like the flavor. I like the flavor of
yeah, that. Like, oh, you lost Donatello, no more Donatello. It makes sense, right? It's funny.
That's kind of morbid.
Yeah. It's funny, all of the games we...
Donatello's gone forever.
See you, sucker. No more pizza jokes for Donatello. Yeah. All the games that we mentioned, though, Battletoads, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they're all those classic NES games, or in Ghouls and Ghosts case, that was arcade originally, I think, and probably ported to NES.
Super NES.
It was a Super NES game.
Oh, Ghouls and Ghosts, of course. So Ghouls and Ghosts would have been on
There was
NES.
a Ghouls and Ghosts, and I think there was actually like a Goblins and Ghouls game before Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Right. It's like a spiritual successor, kind of like Dark Souls Bloodborne style.
They all work
And
the
Demon
exact
Souls.
same way. They all
they're all the same game.
Kill yourself.
They feature oh god, what's the hero's name? Because he's in
Arthur.
Arthur. That's right.
He's in Marvel vs. Capcom.
Exactly.
So, like, if you've ever played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, he's that little knight guy. That's the guy we're talking about.
He's a zoner. So all these games are these old classic NES style or SNES arcade games. And if you notice, usually those old games, most of those old games were hard as crap. And nowadays, games are a little easier. But why were the old games hard? We mentioned some of the mechanics that like lead directly to the difficulty, right? Finite lives is very common.
Right, yeah.
Hugely punishing damage or like one-shot kills. Think about like Mega Man.
Mostly one-shot kills.
Yeah, touching the spike objects in Mega Man, you just blow up instantly.
You blow up into a million circles. Yeah.
Not
having a save point, that's like a big deal.
Huge.
Or
like
checkpoints.
Checkpoints and save points, those are very new. Back, like, Super Ghouls and Ghosts does not have that. You don't have a save point.
Right.
You go, and that's it.
And so if all of those are the what, then the why is like, okay, why were they like this? Well, save points is a good example. Why? Because of the hardware. The cartridges were limited in the amount of data you could fit on them, so that made the developers do certain things like no save points. Some games had codes you could put in to leap forward, but most I would say did not. Another funny thing that is a product of the small storage space is how that relates to difficulty is they couldn't fit like 1,000 levels on a cartridge, or something more realistic like 30 or 40 levels. So the few levels they had, maybe like 10 or 12 levels, had to be really hard. The developers would make them more difficult intentionally to kind of extend the lifespan of the game. So you get your money's worth. You feel like you're actually going through a lot of stuff, right? Another thing that probably contributed to the why old school games were long, is because like old school games couldn't capture you with like, holy shit, advanced graphics. You know, they weren't terribly beautiful to look at. And you guys mentioned Super Nintendo. This isn't true so much, but on NES, it's not like you had these like super emotionally compelling and deep narratives to follow. Sure, you might follow, you know, Link as he tries to find Zelda, but if you actually remember the original Zelda, the story was so minimal that you just dropped on the Hyrule Beach. And okay, go. And it's not really, you know, much of a narrative. And so games, in order to offer you a sense of, you know, a drive to continue to play them, they had to make them difficult. So when you beat them, you had a sense of achievement. And you felt like you did something.
You accomplished something, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like, you don't have graphics. Like we're talking about with BioShock. Like, that game is, we all think it's incredible, partly because of how good it looks.
Yep.
But if we're just basing it solely on its gameplay, it's not that, it's okay. You know, it's not that great, but you pair it with the gorgeous graphics and it'll captivate you. You pair it with maybe the compelling storyline and it'll captivate you.
Right.
But if we're just basing it off of gameplay, it definitely doesn't like compare.
Star Wars Battlefront, an example I mentioned earlier, is a perfect example. That game is absolutely gorgeous and immersive, but gameplay is kind of weak.
I feel like you mentioned a great point when you brought up the fact that they didn't have stories, because that was another thing. Like games, like when we talked about storytelling in games in the past, those old games didn't have too much of a story, so people just thought about them as being time wasters. Like, remember that stigma that a lot of people still have about games. Like, they don't view it as like a storytelling medium. They view it as, we're going to just play this game. So these time wasters slowly started becoming popular, and gaming hobbyists, would just want to have, like, they'd go through these little games too fast. So I feel like because they were still in that area of not being able to be a storytelling medium yet, but still having a following, they would make it to the best of their ability, and at that point didn't mean telling a story in the most immersive way.
Right.
It would be bringing up, making the difficulty and making a high skill cap for those kinds of games.
And also related to that whole games as a two flavor delivery process between story and gameplay. If your game has no story, you can't get a catharsis or a sense of resolution from completing the story. But if it's all gameplay, then your catharsis comes from beating the game and like having that, ooh, yeah, I did it. Also, I have a funny question. You guys asked me this question. Who were NES games made for? They were made for this small niche of the population called gamers, of which there weren't very many. And although the NES helped revive the health of the gaming industry, they acknowledged that they were targeting a very limited subset of the population. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about just making sure that you enjoy the game. And, like Mario doesn't have a storyline. It's just difficult. It's a platformer. It's difficult. So they had to make it as difficult as possible in certain areas and forgiving in certain areas as well. Now, the games, they want to make you feel good. They want to hold your hand and they want to tell you exactly how to do things. And they want to give you a tutorial like, oh, this is going to be really confusing and this is really convoluted. Let's break it down for them. Like, I don't know. Not a fan of this whole genre of spoon feeding me my game.
I feel like there's definitely a progression for this jump. Like I found, we had those games, like we were saying, there's no storyline, so they make this skill cap really high. They have NES coming out. Not too many people are getting more into games. Mario Brothers comes out. Everybody's like, wow, this is really cool. Super Nintendo comes out. Sega Genesis comes out. People are really into these games now. They're starting to become a new medium. Like people are really picking it up. So we're having the capability now to make some story type games, such as like Final Fantasies. They were on NES, but Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, games that told stories that didn't have to be just difficult, but they still had the room for those really, really difficult games because that's what we were used to. Fast forward a little bit more, N64 days, PlayStation days. This is a brand new system. You're able to work in a 3D space. So there was a lot of learning, I feel, going on during that time. There was a lot of weird type games, like the 3D adventure games. Those were never done before. These were games you were able to really immerse, but I feel like difficulty was a little bit harder to pull off because they're trying to figure out how to work within these new graphical settings. I feel then you move PlayStation 2, GameCube era, Xbox era. They got these systems down. They're starting to make, these games a little bit more difficult while being in this immersive 3D space. Wii comes out. Wii wants to do something completely different. They want to target, after, I guess, the GameCube, the waning GameCube sales, they want to do something that hasn't been done. They want to capture that audience that they haven't had, the casual gamer, with that new, remote style, really intuitive controls. At that point, I feel like a lot of our other companies started to try and jump on that bandwagon to make these games more casual, gamer friendly. And I feel like that seemed to carry over to our games that pretty much built these games like to where they were. It built the industry to where it was. So a lot of these games we expected to have difficult gameplay, really, really solid control schemes. We're now getting hindered. We have these really easy modes coming out for these games, and it kind of, a lot of people were up in arms. And I noticed lately this hardcore gamer, which I always hated that terminology, hardcore gamer versus casual gamer, fight was always going this is a hardcore game. No, that's games for casuals. So people still say that a little bit, but not to extent as back then, because I feel like it was kind of, gamers were losing their identity because their grandmas were playing video games. And they were making games less difficult for that.
Yeah, it was kind of when we started to first really see this trend of games targeted at a broader audience, that those terms, the derogatory casual term, came about, is when the the population was split in two, right? And you started to maybe form an identity and say, oh, I was a gamer before they started making video games for everybody, so that somehow makes me different. The truth in that is debatable, but I understand how and why it came about. It's when this kind of phenomenon happened in the industry, and all of a sudden you have a boatload of new people flood into the community, right? And they are a little different, right? They don't have, our pedigree as old school gamers.
Yeah, and I feel like that doesn't discredit them, because, of course that was kind of like a double-edged sword. Everybody was like, oh, right, now, my girlfriend who never liked video games, because she could play with me now. It's going to be great. We could have all these things. But I feel like as soon as they started getting these casual people into the market, they wanted to make the games that were originally for gamers appeal more to these new age gamers also, and that lowered these difficulty levels. I don't know when it's happened, but I feel like we're slowly gotten to the point where these industries aren't caring as much about this casual crowd, or they still do, but they've kind of went back to keeping our games, like the games that are normally thought of as difficult and challenging, and keeping those separated almost in a certain way, or keeping their identity pristine. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite example, not my favorite example, but I really like the Unreal Tournament series. That's my Unreal Tournament 2004, my favorite shooter of all time. That's on record right now.
Okay.
Never disputed against anything for me. So, the Unreal Tournament series, 1999, an N64 era, pretty difficult, a shooter kind of Quake-based. Unreal Tournament 2004 came out, really, really awesome, really awesome stuff. High quality, vehicle combat, ridiculous game modes. One of my favorite shooter of all time. Then Wii comes out post that 2004 era. Unreal Tournament 3, piece of crap. It looked gorgeous. They took away you used to be able to double jump in Unreal Tournament, and you also be able to press forward and do an air dodge. So you could essentially triple jump in that game, double jump and then air dodge to the right. So you kind of fake people out in the air while moving really fast, while fighting flying vehicles. That one they took out double jumping, or they took out air dodging or something.
Wait a minute. I've played Unreal Tournament 2004 with you. Why have you never told me this? This is bullshit. You've like kept this information from me. I
just thought it was common knowledge.
Air dodge.
Yeah, you can air dodge.
This explains so much. This explains like so many things. You've just blown my entire mind.
Wow. Yeah, let's play NBA Jam and not tell you about the turbo button.
Seriously, that's basically what he did. Like, I'm like, how are you on fire? Why is my net on fire right now? What
Don't
have
worry
you
about
done?
It. It's just aesthetic, Mitch.
Oh my god.
Jeez,
but yeah. So Unreal Tournament 2004, really technical, really high intensity. 2003, slowed down, beefy, meaty, like chunky characters jumping around with weird guns. Nobody really liked it. I only played it for a couple hours. I was disgusted. Unreal Tournament 4 now, or I don't know which Unreal Tournament this is. I feel it's a really interesting direction. It's community based in that they put it out, the base code for free. Anybody who's coding can kind of work on it. I feel this is a great, like, it goes from very difficult to the casual to what we are in now. I feel like it's a great, like, example for the history of how gaming and difficulty has gone as of late.
Well, it's just like the games nowadays, I mean, it's exactly like what we said. When we've said it before, and we've seen it with like World of Warcraft, like games and developers, they want to appeal to everybody now. They want to try to appeal to as many people as they can, and it's kind of like a sliding scale. It's either like how, like the integrity of your game or the population of your game, like the population of people that will like your game, right? You know, it's kind of like a sliding scale, and people are leaning towards like wanting more people. You know, obviously for the fiscal reason, but it's just unfortunate. I remember the way that they used to. I specifically don't like this whole spoon feeding you like how to play this game mode, right? This introduction where they just like say, I'm going to, they're just like, they're very blatant about it. Like, oh, push X to jump, right? Like, oh, this is what you do. And they break down all the features of the game instead of letting you kind of figure it out. One of my favorite games of all time is Mega Man X. That game was incredible. The game was absolutely incredible on the SNES. And they do a really good job of, they don't tell you anything. You literally spawn in this road and there's rad music playing. And you just have to kind of figure it out. You go left. Oh, I can't go left. Okay, this is a side scroller. You go right. Okay, and then there's like a pit. And you have to just figure out what the hell's going on. And that whole introductory level teaches you the game without telling you anything. It just kind of forces you to figure it out. And then you learn without realizing that you're learning how to play the game. And that is something that I love.
That's good game design. I've seen...
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's even like in Chris, you brought up Nintendo 64. 3-dimensional games. What was the title game of the Nintendo 64? Mario 64. What happens? You're spawned in the middle of a garden, and you're just like, okay, I'm Mario. I'm in the middle of this garden. Peach has a cake. There's the castle. Let me run over there. They don't tell you how to fucking do anything. They don't even tell you like to jump through pictures. I remember when I first got that game, it took me like 20 minutes to figure out that I had to jump through a picture. I had no idea. I'm pretty sure I read the back of the box and saw someone doing it in the box, but like they don't tell you. They just expected you to kind of like run around, explore this environment, and figure it out. And then you'll learn as you go. They're going to slowly introduce new things to you in the game design instead of just like, here's how you play this game. And I think that's something that we're missing now is this concept of you kind of going your own way with it. They're just going to dump you in the middle of this thing, and you just kind of gotta do with it what you can. I miss that. I really miss that type of integrity from games.
There's a video out there of Miyamoto talking about Mario World 1 Level 1, about how that level teaches you how to play the game. And it's awesome. You really can see how beautiful the game design is.
Oh, you're talking about like Mario Brothers, like the side scroller?
Yes, for NES. Original. Yeah, he talks about how World 1 Level 1 teaches you how to play the game down to the brick and question mark block placement. And it's awesome.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm like thinking about it in my head now, and you're right. Like I can kind of see what you're talking about. I still want to watch the video though. We'll probably post it in the show notes because it sounds fantastic. And any excuse to listen to Miyamoto is always a good one.
Yeah.
So Dakota, what about you? What do you think is making these games easier? Like Chris thinks it's just this devolution. I personally think it's just this holding your hand type of introduction. Like what is it for you?
I think it's a number of things. Some of them have to do with, again, what we talked about earlier, the hardware. Now, hardware is not an issue, right? So something like saving that might have made a game really hard isn't an issue anymore. It's interesting, though, on that note specifically, you can see how this will lead right into my next point. The Resident Evil series went from a limited save mechanic with the ink ribbons. You'd have to collect them, and you could only save a limited number of times, into being able to save at any time. And that's a really good example of how the trend seems to be quality of life improvements and accessibility. And those two things combined, the product of them is easier games. Because as you guys, well, the two of you both mentioned, the game industry is making games for everybody now. Not just for a small niche of people. Everybody. And so if you make a game too agonizingly difficult, everybody isn't going to buy it. And everybody isn't going to give you their money. It's funny, like now when people buy games, I think the biggest thing for me is it's this participation trophy mentality. People buy games with the entitled opinion that they deserve to beat the game. And this is, maybe not amongst you guys, but this is kind of controversial. Back in the day, like when you bought a game, an NES game, you didn't think you were going to beat it. You hoped you would beat it. You did not necessarily know you were going to beat it. And I'm talking difficulty. If you don't like it, that's something else. It was such that my uncle Chris, when he talked about beating a game, he would say, "Oh yeah, I solved that game." Because it was like a puzzle that he had to actually work at to figure out in order to beat it. It wasn't like, "Oh, I saw the ending to the game." It's, I figured it out. I did something. I achieved victory over the puzzles presented to me. But now people expect to just be as you said, spoon-fed, just handed victory on a silver platter. Like when was the last time you bought a game and go, "Gee, I hope I can beat this game so I can see the ending"? You don't think that anymore.
I've never thought that. I've literally never thought that statement. At least not in the past 10 conscious years.
Right. And I definitely remember thinking that way back in the day, but certainly not any time now. Everybody wants to be pat on the head and told them they've done great for doing very mediocre things, like pressing forward and jump a couple times. I know I'm being hyperbolic, but I think the point remains the same. And I think it's part of this mentality where we're all entitled to whatever we want from a game. And I don't think that's necessarily the way it should be.
You know what? It's interesting. You said everybody's expecting to beat these games. This might be not on topic, but on Steam, on the Steam data, I don't know what the Steam charts or something. If you look at all these games' achievement levels, and you slowly start reading them, you'll see all the achievements that people do at the beginning of the game, like, enter the first room, kill the first bad guy. It's like 98% done or like 80% done because people buy it. When you get down to beat the game on any difficulty, a lot of these games have like a 5% achievement rating for that.
Are we talking about high end, like the high volume played games?
I'm talking
not
about
this rinse and repeat bullshit game you were talking about. We're talking about actual games, right?
Oh, I forgot to mention I played all three of the prequels to that. I might bring that up a little bit later if you want me to.
Nope.
But yeah, no, I'm talking about like Portal 2. People haven't beat that game. How old is that game? And that's based on a percentage of the people who own it on Steam. Like, these numbers aren't, I don't know how accurate they are, but they're accurate enough to give an idea, a sample size.
Well, I applaud Valve for making Portal 2 and making it a kind of game that not everybody beats, but Chris, I kind of feel you're shitting on my point.
I'm so sorry. I just had to bring it up because I don't know.
It is interesting to know, but I think it's funny. Here's an achievement related topic that relates to the sense of entitlement that I think a lot of people have. I hear people complain that they can't get the platinum trophy for a game because it's too hard. Oh, they look at the trophy list for PlayStation or the achievement list for Xbox, and they say, "Oh, that's lame. Why does this list have this trophy on it? I'll never be able to do that." And I think to myself, well, if you're never able to do that, then you don't get the platinum trophy. It's supposed to not be for everybody.
I'm not going to be able to get first place. It's bullshit. I can't get that first place trophy. That's not fair.
Yeah, or one that I hear often is oh, I don't think this trophy list should include achievements based on the online mode. Why not? Everybody has online capabilities. Assume that the people in question do, because I'm not talking. If you can't connect to the internet for some reason, okay, that's a legitimate complaint. But if you have an internet connection and you just don't, I don't like the online modes. Getting a platinum trophy is a mark of mastering all aspects of the game, including the ones you don't like. So just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be on the trophy list. And I think it's kind of all related to this mentality that most people have with regards to video games now. It's strange.
I feel that definitely messed around with the dynamic of MMOs too. Like when I started playing World of Warcraft, oh my god, I have so many hours.
Don't get me started on how that game has gone down the toilet.
I don't really I don't know too much. I played from release until Wrath of the Lich King came out, so that's about a 5-year span.
It was it's a 5-year span. I think I got the 5-year achievement in Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah, I didn't even get any achievements. That's when
not achievement, but like they gave you something for like the 5-year anniversary.
Okay.
Like they give you like that bear, like the Blizzard bear.
Right.
But I was playing WoW, and I did original raid content when it was just Molten Core out, and like I had no life then, and I played this game, and I was able to raid 5 nights a week with this group of 40 great people.
The good old days,
I
man.
know, 40 people, 5 nights a week, like 7 hours a night. My second full-time job.
Yeah, that's literally a job.
Yeah, I'd play, and I'd get like, it was difficult to get all these people together to do these bosses. We'd get together. I would get the gear after like blood, sweat, and tears, like to get this gear to drop with my terrible, awful luck. And I'd get it, and I'd walk around Stormwind, and you just like see, or people would just walk up and be like, "Whoa, look at this guy!"
Yeah.
And you felt like a badass. Like I never felt more badass in my life.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Like,
WoW is a very good example of all of these aspects kind of coming together, because the trend of the difficulty of that game has definitely gone down because of like accessibility features, quality of life features, and this kind of everybody gets a prize mentality, right? I mean, before only raiders got raid gear. Now who gets raid gear?
Everybody. All of your mom,
like,
your brother, your dog, your mount, like everybody.
But I don't know. I feel like it was maybe like a honeymoon era for that game too, because I played like to get the full first tier set. I had to play for like 8 months, 5 days a night, like 5 days a week, raiding. Like it was not a proud moment in my life. but I did it.
I'm proud of you, so don't.
Thank you.
Come on.
But when I walked around Ironforge and I kept seeing people stop next to my character to inspect me, I'm like, yeah, that's right.
He was proud of himself in those
I was proud of myself. Like, and you got a sense of achievement because of how much effort you had to put into this game. And I feel like a lot of games, when we go into difficulty for games, we go into kind of two ways. You go into artificial difficulty or design difficulty. And artificial difficulty is where you make a game difficult by making maybe monsters have higher stats, right? So like, or you make a game where your character, like a side-scroller, if you put it on hard, your character gets less lives.
Sure, yeah.
Right? So it's an artificial point of difficulty. Maybe then there's a design difficulty where the developer makes it more difficult, right? They design the game with difficulty settings in mind to make a puzzle harder, to make the AI better. I don't know. I feel like we should talk about this because I want to get to a point where we could discuss where would games like this fall on that spectrum?
I think it's a good question. So you're basically saying design difficulty is a good way to implement difficulty, but artificial is not.
I mean, I feel like it's not a dichotomy. It's not one or the other. It's not black and white. You have to have a mix of both. Like, There are some games where if you, like old SNES games, they didn't really have a lot of, leeway. So, like the Lion King game, like we talked about last week.
Hey.
If you put on hard mode, instead of having 5 lives, you'd have 3 lives. And maybe you wouldn't have like a save point or something.
Uh-huh.
But that's artificial. Like they put in a mode.
The game is the
way.
same, but there's just there's limiting resources.
And I feel like a lot of shooters do that nowadays, like especially BioShock Infinite. Like also exactly what you said. These enemies become bullet sponges. Like if you set a game to harder, the enemies don't seek you out. They don't put these enemies in like, I don't know, dynamic positions, or like maybe put a couple like specific enemies to like corner you or put you in like a bottleneck position. Like they don't do any strategy. They just be like, all right, this guy has more health and he does more damage to you.
Right.
Oh, by the way, you take more damage.
Yeah. But don't you think that should make the game more difficult? Like
no,
it is artificial, but it forces you, instead of just being like, okay, I'm gonna run up to this guy and shoot him in the head. Now it's like, oh fuck, there's like 4 of these guys now, and instead of having like 20 health, they all have 100 health. I have to come up with a different way to attack this 4-man team now, because I can't just mow them down. Now I actually have to like specifically target each one of them.
In some instances,
that's the ideal situation.
That's
the problem
the
is they
ideal.
don't execute it like
So
that.
Exactly.
here's what I think about that, Mitch. I think you touch on really, really good stuff. I think half of those mechanics are difficulty done right and half are wrong. I think the wrong ones, the wrong way to do it, is high enemy health. Because I think that a first-person shooter should maintain kind of its genre feel of like quick, twitch, reflexy kind of movement. But when an enemy takes like a fucking clip and a half of bullets to kill, it kind of takes a lot of the momentum out of the gameplay. And
Right.
so
I
don't
agree.
like
I agree with
increasing enemy health. What I do think is legit is reducing player health, because then it puts a larger onus on you, the player, to successfully avoid the enemies. And that's part of the skill involved in an FPS.
That's a good way to artificially, I guess, affect, a shooter. Like, I like the idea of maybe, I mean, it's difficult to increase the AI of enemies.
It is,
right? Like
yeah. That's no easy
That's
feat.
that's something almost unreasonable to ask of a developer in to a certain extent.
But saying the
Like-
sky's the limit, that would be the ideal way to increase FPS difficulty.
Yeah.
Well, no, so like in Diablo 3, I like the way that they do it. Like
Yes.
certain mobs have different abilities if
Now I
more
feel-
people are involved.
That's a design
I
difficulty.
love that. Like
That's
this guy
exact-
normally
I
just like
wanted
shoots
to bring that
bullets.
up so
but
bad.
now he just shoots bombs and they explode and the radius is bigger, or they explode quicker, like, or he just has a completely different ability where these bombs may suck you in. Like that is kind of where we need to be heading, I think, because it's unrealistic to ask the developers, right, to maybe like develop a different map on a higher difficulty that challenges you more, right? Because then you have 2 different groups of people getting a completely different experience, like entirely, like from the physical aspect of the game. So it's unreasonable to ask them to do that. So there's got to be some kind of middle ground, and I think that's where we're at. Lowering player health, giving these things like different abilities, maybe limiting your resources is what I would say. Making like bullets harder to find, for example,
Yes.
like ammo.
And even lower health is a type. Health is resource, right? So when you say
Yeah,
lower
health is
health,
a resource,
that
yes.
totally falls in that category.
But like the Diablo, that's a great, that's design difficulty, right? Like it's not just making these enemies tougher. It's totally changing the way they attack you. It's
Right.
adding like multiple aspects to them, like changing up the way you have to do your strategy,
Right.
besides like changing up how much damage you have to like punch into
Right.
them.
It actually forces you to play the game differently.
Exactly. Another game that had this design difficulty feel to it is Alien Isolation. That was actually a situation where they changed the AI a bit, because there's not a whole. It's you versus an alien, basically one alien, and you're sneaking around. So they have to make it so that the alien seeks you out more often than kind of like goes past you, or maybe like does closer passes towards you.
Ugh.
It's not it's really freaking scary. It's so I love Alien series. I'm not gonna talk about it. Oh my god, I love Alien series. But it's so great. That game is so beautiful. And when you play it on hard, you're like, oh god, he knows I'm here. Like this is it. This is the end.
Right, but the amount of time and money they spent on just that one UI is like insane. Like they were able to do that because that's the only, spoiler alert, that's the only like enemy in the game. Like that's it. So they had one enemy to focus on the UI for. Like we can't expect developers, it's just unreasonable to expect developers to be able to put that much effort into every AI.
Right.
And so again, like these middle ground, I would love to see shooters, even like Destiny. I love this game, but I would love to see them stop having this rejuvenating health option. Like,
I'll put it like Half-Life days.
It's like the grossest thing I've ever seen. Like I remember in the first Halo, you had health. Like, you had to go and find a health pack. Like, what the hell is a health pack? Do they even have those in games anymore? Like, health kits?
Right. So
I really like
few. So few.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen one in a long time.
Halo 3, I think, or maybe the Reach, I don't know which one did it, but I really like the idea of having a shield and a health. Actually, they had it in BioShock Infinite too, where
you have a shield
health
and a health bar.
Yeah,
right, and the
I
shield
like that.
regenerates, but the health does not.
Yeah,
yeah. That's cool.
You know what?
I like that as a
like
healthy
that.
medium between the two. Here's an interesting little bit. I think I remember as part of the behind the scenes The Last of Us documentary. There's a documentary of the making of, by the way, on YouTube. Again, more Last of Us stuff. Check it out. And they were talking about how to influence the player's feelings of dread, and one of the tools that they would use would be to limit the available resources in an area. So if they wanted you to start panicking from a horror gameplay perspective, they would make the game more difficult by reducing the amount of resources you had to craft and like create bandages. Also a game with bandages, by the way, much better than regen health.
I feel like that's another version. It could be taken too far in the artificial direction. Like, I felt like for Resident Evil, it's already a survival horror, which means you have limited resources as it is, right?
Very.
So they're going to limit the resources more depending on how hard it is. Like, that's not games like that. I don't know. It's just not as
I don't think that's
interesting
artificial
to me,
Chris. I think that's a really good design because it puts a greater onus on the player to effectively manage their resources, and that's a skill.
Yeah, you can't just run into this group of zombies and just like unload and whatever.
Oh, no, I'm not.
It's like, oh, I don't have any more bullets now. Crap, you know?
Yeah, I guess.
You've got to basically, it's more, the game becomes more difficult. And one of the ways the game can become more difficult is by forcing you to have to like kind of think ahead instead of just thinking in the moment. That's a difficult thing to do. So to like plan your entire level out.
Yeah. I think a really good way, at least for me, that I found to see whether or not I think that a difficulty mechanic is well designed or not, or done right or wrong, is ask yourself what it tests in the player. So, like,
right, exactly,
limiting resources tests the player's resource management. And I played a game called Invisible Ink, which is a turn-based tactical, kind of like XCOM. And you can knock guards out. It's kind of like the stealth version of XCOM. So you can knock guards out, and they'll stay knocked out for a number of rounds. On a higher difficulty, the number of rounds is fewer. So if you're playing on easy, they might stay knocked out for 4 or 5 rounds. But if you're playing on hard, it's like 1 or 2 rounds. And so that tests your efficiency of navigating the level. Right. As opposed to
it's like a complex puzzle.
Yeah. So what is increasing an enemy health test? Your ability to continue doing what you were already doing for a longer time?
I mean, the way that they do it, yes, that's what it's testing. But I think the first time somebody increased the enemy health, it was, like I said before, the idea of, I can't just run into this room and just, like, kill all these guys. I've now got to maybe, like, scope the room out, see where they are, see if I can maybe snipe one. And then, like, you know, I have to tactically engage these 4 people now instead of just running in and kind of doing what I want. I think that was I hope at least that was the concept. You know what? That's definitely not the way it's been executed.
I hope that you're right, but what I think it was just another knob for them to turn. Like, we can turn the health knob on the player. Oh, we can turn the health knob on the enemy. It's just like another knob to turn.
I'd like to be a little bit more optimistic about it.
I enjoy your optimism. Another one that's obviously I consider difficulty done wrong is when the game allows the computer to cheat. Just blatantly cheat.
That is actually the worst. Like don't ever do that, developers.
Like you see this like in sports games or maybe even sometimes in shooters where all of a sudden they're hitting you when they couldn't possibly hit you, or they're making catches when you have like double coverage on a receiver or something. And what does that test in the player? Absolutely nothing. It's completely out of the player's control.
And like a cover-based shooter, when you pop your head out and it's an instant like shot on you because there's nothing else like that they're going to do for it.
Right. That doesn't test anything.
I mean, that just becomes... I think increasing AI accuracy is definitely not a bad thing. Now, increasing it to 100% where every shot is a headshot and you pretty much can't do anything, yeah, that's a little too much. But increasing it from like, because they do that in a lot of shooters, like the accuracy is increased, and I think that's fine. That's an okay thing to do.
Sure,
because that's what you're doing. Your enemies are more difficult instead of being like this novice pistol wielder. Now
you don't want him to be
like
stormtroopers.
He's like a veteran pistol shooter. He's got a little bit more of an accuracy. He's still going to miss sometimes, and he's not always going to hit you in the head, but he's going to put more rounds close to you. Like, you got to be a little more careful. I like that. That's fine.
Yeah, there's a delicate line, I think, to find there, because I definitely feel like sometimes I'll be playing GTA and I'll be miles away from an enemy and they're just like nailing me constantly. I'm thinking, how on earth could anybody make this shot with like a submachine gun or something?
Well, I think that's the problem, right? So we're talking about all the ways to do this, and you're talking about this fine line, but the problem here is the developers are most likely not thinking about these things. They're just like, okay, we're going to have two or three difficulties. We're going to have easy, normal, and hard. So, okay, just do this. Make this, just do that. They probably don't even test, like, how much more difficult or less difficult it is, or if it gives you a more, like you said, like these senses of dread or these senses of, like, difficulty or complexion. Like, they're probably just like, yeah, whatever, 50 health, 100 health, 150 health. Sure.
What about games, though, such as Dark Souls or Super Meat Boy? There is no difficulty, but they are crafted to be difficult.
Yeah, I think those are great examples of how the industry has kind of come full circle in a way. They've noticed that, oh wait, we still have this group of players that really appreciates a hard game, so let's again target them very specifically. Bloodborne and Super Meat Boy are great examples. You said Dark Souls.
See,
same.
I actually disagree with this point. I think these are kind of outliers, because if you think about it, like Super Meat Boy, it wasn't really played like that much. It was relatively popular, but it wasn't like a World of Warcraft game or like a Halo game. Same with Dark Souls. Dark Souls is kind of like a niche. That's a very niche group of people. Yeah, I consider myself a hardcore gamer, and I don't fucking like Dark Souls. I would never play that game. That game seems miserable.
That's exactly what I said, Mitch. Like these games are targeted at that narrow.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They're coming full circle back to only targeting a small amount of people.
Yeah, they've realized that they can't make a solid game with a high level of difficulty and try to target everybody. They say, okay, we give up. We're not going to try to target everybody. We're going to go back and just focus narrowly on these guys.
Exactly. That ties into what I was like I was trying to bring that up, I guess not as we finally got to that detailed explanation where I was saying, like, I think once the Wii came out and they had so many casual gamers, they're trying to implement these casual styles onto old style games, and then people were they were having that backlash where I feel like people made that us versus them type mentality of hardcore versus casual. And now we're able to get into a moment in gaming where even though there aren't a lot of people buying Super Meat Boy or Dark Souls, there's a significant number of people that buy them because there still is that big base who wants that difficulty level. But, it's not going to be for everybody.
Well, yeah, like there's enough people there. There's definitely enough people. You know what I've noticed, and I'm kind of thinking about it now, and I think this is where the games that aren't just saying, okay, we give up, we're not going to try to appease everybody. What I think games are doing now, and I see it a lot, and it's actually a big pet peeve of mine, is games are putting these difficult things that people, that this niche group of people want, they're tossing them then in achievements. They're making it an achievement to do this really ridiculous thing that's not actually part of the game. And that's something that I hate. Like these stupid...
I don't like that.
I hate it so much, but like I like it. I'm not saying I don't like achievements. I'm saying like making just like an achievement to do something really ridiculous or to find something really ridiculous is one thing, but an achievement just to do something difficult, that's not an achievement. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be an achievement. That should be the game.
One particular thing I could think of off the top of my head. There's like, have you guys ever played Brutal Legend?
No, but I want to. Is that the Jack Black game?
It's the Jack Black game. If you love like old school like metal at all or have any like knowledge, it's so good. It's just such a good game.
Isn't the game menu like you open up the album and like go in?
Yeah. Oh my god, it's so beautiful. But you could tell that they were running out of funding at the end. Like you could tell like the ending was just rushed. But overall it was really fun. Like it was a solid game. It wasn't the best game of all time, but it was definitely fun. I just remember this game because I really enjoyed it. Like I love the soundtrack. I was playing it. This one particular, I was able to get a lot of the achievements pretty easily, except for this one. And I just thought it was so dumb. Like, you had to go to this one end of this open world map where these, like, flame boars or some kind of thing was. And you had to try and get one or wrangle one. And then when you get on it, it keeps going and it doesn't stop until you hit something. So you have to get on this boar in this one part of the map and drive it all the way to the bottom left corner of the map and like jump off of it so that it flies into the lava pit. Like,
that's not an achievement. That's just a stupid task.
It's just, and it takes like 15 minutes to drive this thing across the whole thing without like an achievement. You can't hit enemies, and like you have to know the right spots. It's just, it's just awful. Like, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't want to. An
achievement should be like, this puzzle, for example, maybe like in Portal is a good example. This puzzle should, it only took me 15 portal shoots or whatever. Like, you had an achievement. Oh, you did it in like under like the allotted number of portal shoots or whatever. Like, that's
outperforming
the difficulty of the level. Not like, oh, you like, I don't like you were saying before, like how like there's an achievement for just like, oh, you walked into the first level. Oh, you beat the first boss. Like,
those are the ones you're
supposed to do that. That's the point of the game. The achievement is like, an achievement should be like, I beat the game without dying. Like, that's a fucking achievement. Like, right. But these games are like hiding these like difficult things in the achievements for these niche people that want to do these difficult things, and so the rest of the people can just play the game as normal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I definitely don't like that. It's definitely not something that I'm a fan of.
I think this kind of goes back to the World of Warcraft sentiment, where it's a very difficult game, but only if you want to make it difficult. For instance, like, I wanted to be a raider, and I wanted to, do those like high-end instances, so I had to put in a lot of time. It was very difficult for me to get on beyond all these times and like do this attunement, like get these 40 people together and do it. But not everybody wanted to have that experience in that game. Some people were just fine with crafting. Other people maybe wanted to do PvP. What about a game such as Animal Crossing? That's not a difficult game by any means, but if you want to have like this particular house with these certain things in it, you have to be on like at a particular time of day and get these certain things right. It might be difficult to get all of these things because you just have to do it correctly, but it's only as difficult as you want to make it.
Right, maybe like it's collecting all of this thing in a collection, sure, or even like finding all these caches of ammunition that are scattered about a level. Like, I don't know. The achievements is a whole nother ballpark. That's I could talk about.
But like the whole game of Animal Crossing isn't an achievement. It's just Animal Crossing is just, you have a house. What do you want to put in it? It could be as difficult as you want to get all those materials, because it's not an achievement to do it. It's a personal achievement, I guess. But you don't. It's not like a artificial achievement where it's like, bing, you got a leather zebra sofa. It's like, you want that zebra sofa. How do I do this? But maybe somebody doesn't have that awful tacky taste.
Animal Crossing's not designed to be like a game that has a difficulty.
That's what I'm saying. But what is difficulty?
Jesus. Okay, before we get too philosophical here, I think right now we're in an era where most games they're trying to do essentially what WoW did, and they're lowering the integrity of the game to increase the player base of the game. And whether or not that is correct, I don't know. I mean, like, they're definitely alienating the non-casuals, but I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing. I'm not. It's yet to be seen. I can't really predict the future. I don't know what you guys think, but
I feel like the future we're gonna have. I think games like Smash is gonna be a good thing, a good option. Like, I mean, it's not gonna be possible, but Super Smash Brothers, you can play that game with your family, putting on all items, and everybody's just throwing turtle shells and being like wacky and Mario versus Link kinds on crazy levels. Or you could turn off all that stuff and have it to be a really serious, like, high intensity fighter, 1-on-1.
Right. I think we're going to go. I think the point is, I think the people that want this niche, like, really difficult situation, they're gonna have to play multiplayer games, and we're gonna have to shove them over there because single player games are just getting easier than Pi. And Pi, I don't know if you guys know this, Pi is really fucking easy.
For those who want the difficult games, they have their Super Meat Boys, their Dark Souls, their Bloodborns, right. So that's fine.
Yeah, there's going to be those franchises, but Destiny's always going to just explain it to you and spoon feed it to you, much like Pi. I I need to know about this meta bet. We need to get to the meta bet because I am dying to hear Dakota talk to me.
All right.
Heroes of the Storm.
Meta bet. Heroes of the Storm. You want to hear about that? I talked about that. I played. That game is tough. I'm not the kind of guy who plays one game at a time, so it was just really taxing on my patience.
So what you're saying is I picked a good one.
You picked a good one. It was a worthy punishment. Hopefully this week will be different. This week we are going to check in on our Disgaea 5 bets. If you guys recall, last week I bet 82, Chris 77, and Mitch 80, and the Metacritic score at the time was 82. Currently, I was
gonna be like, are you kidding me?
No, that was at the time.
Yeah, I remember. That was so sad.
I wish I wrote down how many reviewers had reviewed it. Currently, the score with 34 reviews is 82.
Okay, see this shit is rigged now. I
am losing my mind over this number, dude. It's mystical.
Chris, what do you think about this?
I don't want to talk
Chris, about it. But seriously, this is the fourth 82 in a row.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I feel like we could have a whole other podcast on game rating systems.
We should. We could do that.
Chris, don't break the meta bet. Don't break it, okay?
So for those of you who didn't do the math, that means I won and Chris lost. So, Chris,
I didn't do it.
What are you playing this week?
This week I'm playing Heroes of the Storm is pretty much my bread and butter. I play at least do my things every day, the daily quests. I've been playing. I was gonna start playing. I have a whole bunch of games in my library that I haven't started playing yet. I was eyeing them over.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Telltale's Walking Dead game. I was thinking about doing.
Okay.
I play some Rocket League.
I want you. Have you never played the Walking Dead episodes?
I played the first episode and a half. I played the first one and half of the second one.
Okay, so you playing on PC?
Yeah.
With an Xbox controller?
I have one.
Is that what you used to play?
Know. I don't. I used a trackpad on an old laptop.
This guy's got to make everything so complicated. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. I want you to play through a full episode. You don't have to play through several, but at least one full episode. And I want you to always make the left decision option in conversation.
Ooh. Oh, man.
Wait a minute. But you just take the game away from him. The whole game is going to decisions.
You're going... That's true. You're going to get to experience a very unique story because I'm sure that very few people have always chosen left.
God damn it!
And that's why I said just one episode. It won't take you more than a few hours. So replay it if you need to, but always left. Always left.
I don't think you understand, Dakota. That's a terrible one for me, man.
That means that it's a great one for us.
That's exactly.
I turn off games like that single player. I kind of seclude myself. I spend my time. I get a nice
there's
cup
candles
of something. I'm
lit.
I'm all right. I'm gonna play this game. Let me turn off the light, dim it. Not even turn it off. I'll dim the light a little bit.
Well, please replay it for your own satisfaction. But I gotta hear what crazy shit happens when
Chris,
you go
I need you to take notes too. Let us know what happens in this ridiculous storyline.
So left only.
Always left. I was gonna say always B, but you said you didn't use the controllers or X. Okay. I don't even know.
Just left.
Just left. This week, we're going to be voting on Yoshi's Woolly World on the Wii U.
I'm excited about this game.
This game comes out in 3 days, I believe. Today, the 13th? Yes, 3 days. So write down a number.
Man.
Oh, no, now it's the 14th.
Oh, yeah, it's the 14th. And you're from the future.
Yeah, we have flying cars here. Chris, did you get your flying car yet?
Yeah, I got it parked in the back.
Which one did you get? Did you get the purple one or did you get the red one?
I got the Turbo Boost XL one, so it's clear.
Well, nice. You guys are writing down numbers. I will remind you that we all get flying cars in Rocket League when they release the DeLorean DLC.
Oh my god! Can we vote on that as the meta bet? Because I'll 100% of the time they will have my money.
I don't care that there's going to be 2 million players all using the same car. I'm going to be one of them, and I'm going to be stoked.
Yeah, I was actually talking to one of my coworkers about that. I was like, you know what? I kind of realized that, for a good while, everyone's going to be in a DeLorean, but I was like, I'm 100% okay with that. That sounds awesome.
I am all good. All right, Chris, you got a number? Don't say it yet. Just tell me if you got one.
No.
Okay, write it down.
I have my number.
Mitch has his. So when you're ready, Chris, go ahead.
Chris, the podcast is waiting on you.
Okay. I'm gonna go. God damn, this is so hard. It could either go either way. I'm between two numbers. 5, 4. Okay, I'm going with left. I'm going left. I'm going 78.
78. All right, and Mitch.
God.
Mitch picked 84.
84. Trying to game the game, I think.
No, I think it's going to be good.
So yeah, we talked about how the middle number is the best because there's no way you can possibly lose. And
yeah, I think the absolute quote was, "The man which is the money position."
That's absolutely right. Is that worse?
Trademark.
Is that fact worse than trying to meta game the Price is Right rules, where if you go over? Because if we switch to Price is Right rules, then we're just going to try to game that system too, right?
No, because we're all writing. See, the thing is, like, I'm not gaming the system. Like, I wrote down my number before I knew Chris's.
That's
and
true.
you should have written down yours before you knew mine. So the Price is Right rules won't matter either.
That's true too, because in the Price is Right, they get to see the other people's numbers.
The issue here is just that all these games coming out are average and rated 82. That's the issue. You need to pick some dynamic game choices.
All right, so we've got some different numbers on the board today. 3 days before release with 59 critics.
Well, hold on, wait, Dakota, what was yours? You didn't say
I
yours.
didn't tell you my number. Chris
No.
was 78, Mitch was 84. My number, which I wrote down 2 hours ago, was 85.
Oh my God, I'm in the money!
You are in the money position.
By
1 point. So 3 days before release with 59 critic reviews, Yoshi's Woolly World has a score of 78.
No!
What?
Wait.
Get out!
Not
Get out!
82, 78. What was your other number on the paper, Chris?
Oh, man. My other number was 85.
Oh, no!
Well,
that's a really large gap there.
That's what I'm saying, because I thought it was either going to be kind of like really cute and fun, or it was going to be like too cute and not difficult enough.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really cute and fun. I think that it reminds me of the Kirby game a lot.
Kirby's
Yarn
Yarn
Adventure? It wasn't,
the Yarn Adventure.
But it wasn't rated too high.
Was it really?
No.
I thought that game was awesome.
I mean, it was rated like in the 70s, which is still decent, but it's not like...
Well, what I can't lose, so I'm feeling... I like any situation where I can't lose, I'm feeling great. Dakota, I forgot about the Metabet last week, and I remember you were talking to me, and I was telling you that I was playing Rocket League or something, or that
You
we were
said,
playing
"Hey,
Diablo.
you said, hey, let's play some Rocket League." Is what you said.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, "I wish I could. God damn it."
He sent me a picture of that message, so I have evidence.
Yeah, I literally
was
posted
really
it on
funny.
Facebook, and I said, "Got him. We made it."
Cruel and unusual.
That means that the metabets are just effective. That's all that means. So.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I had a lot of fun complaining about games with you guys today. I think it was fun. I hope everybody out there listening had a lot of fun. I think what we can all take away from this is I'm really good at the metabet now because I can't lose. So
Sounds
feeling pretty good. Chris is
That's what I took
Chris
away.
is gonna enjoy losing. Was this the second week in a? Oh no, Chris and Dakota, you guys just suck. I'm the best.
We've all lost. We've all lost a week.
Yeah, I did have an awful streak at the beginning, but I figured it out. But yeah, so next week we're actually going to be doing a really awesome episode. We're going to be talking about MOBAs because of the league, the world's semifinals, or quarterfinals rather, will be happening next weekend. So we will be doing an episode on that one, kind of highlighting the good, the bad, all sorts of things about MOBAs. So if you're really interested in those, definitely got to check them out. We're actually going to have a secret guest on next week as well. So
not a high profile.
Not a high profile guest at all. Definitely like super low profile. He kind of sucks. I really don't even know why we're bringing him on. But
it's not Gabe Newell.
It is not Gabe Newell or Gabe Newell's dog. It is neither one of us.
Oh, man, I really wanted Rufus on
Yeah,
here.
neither one will be on next week, but we do have a guest coming on. He's going to help us talk about it. Just a longtime veteran of MOBAs. So it should be fun. So, yep, that's it from me. Dakota, Felf, you guys have anything else to say?
Later.
I just called you Felf, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's my gamer name.
That's his gamer
So now
name.
It's known to the world. That's it.
That's it. They probably don't even
no.
know how to spell it.
Yeah, it's very difficult. No. I guess I'm going to see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
Adios.
I'll see you guys next week.